Thank you, ma'am. Good evening to our respected Director, ma'am, Dr. Shashikala Gurpur, our esteemed judge, Mr. Nikhil Narkar, respected faculty members, participants, and one and all present here. Films are an embodiment of the issues prevalent in society and play an active role in dissolving the boundaries of culture and region, and further contribute towards uniting the community by the way of art. On that note, we welcome you all to our film festival, IBTIDA, which translates to the beginning of consciousness. The word aptly describes the noble objective of the event, as the event is an attempt at manifesting awareness on issues that stand vulnerable to the social community. IBTIDA aims at encompassing the knowledge that one attains through films, thus capturing the theme of the event. Under the umbrella of IBTIDA, we present Lamhe, a short film competition that invites entries from various colleges and universities and allows the participants to express their creativity along with their socio-legal acumen. Through this event, we intend to celebrate and appreciate the reflection of society and law that has been incorporated in films and further provide a platform for budding movie makers to showcase and own their talent. The guest judge for the festival is Mr. Nikhil Narkar, who is a visiting faculty at SSLA, SLS Pune, SSC, and SIMC. He has an MPhil in English Literature and Cinema Studies and is currently pursuing his PhD from JNU, New Delhi. His short film Nana was the official selection for the International Film Festival of South Asia, Toronto 2016, South Asian International Film Festival, New York 2016, United Nations Human Rights Film Festival, Barcelona, Madrid 2016, and has received many more accolades.
Now, without further ado, we present to you the 3 shortlisted films for the evening. The top 3 films were chosen after a thorough screening process and encompass the finest of technique, direction, and cinematography. The first film of the evening conceptualizes that in order to attain equity and not just equality, we must teach our children, the citizens of tomorrow, the essence of the term feminism. This is what our first entry, the short film Khichdi, revolves around. Beautifully capturing the aspects of gender bias or discrimination. Now presenting to you Khichdi by Team TC003.
मुनमुन सीधे बैठो वरना ढंग से नहीं बंधेगी। और इतनी ही तकलीफ हो रही है अगर आपको हमारे हाथों से, तो खुद ही बनाना सीख लो। हाँ
माँ, मैं बाहर जा रहा हूँ, आने में देर हो जाएगी।
अच्छा बेटा, वो चारपाई के पास ना सामान की लिस्ट रखी है मैंने, जरा आते समय सारा सामान ले आना। हाँ
दादा मैं भी चलूं आपके साथ, मुझे भी ले चलो ना।
तू पहले अपनी चोटी तो बनाना सीख ले, बाहर जाना है इन्हें।
दादा को आती है चोटी बांधनी? हमें सुना रहा है। कभी रसोई में तो मदद कराने आए नहीं, चाय भी नहीं बनती इनसे। और माँ, हम क्यों नहीं ला सकते बाहर से जरूरी सामान? हाँ?
अरे बेटा, ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है, दादा को समझ है ना इन सब में, दादा जाते रहते हैं, अंदाजा है उन्हें।
माँ, तुमने तो हमें कभी बाहर भेजा ही नहीं, तो तुम उम्मीद कैसे कर सकती हो कि हमें ज्यादा समझ होगी? नहीं है माँ? क्या कमी है हमें?
तू मेरे साथ रसोई चल। चल।
क्या? माँ हमने अभी तो बोला कि हमें ये सब नहीं सीखना है और आप होगी।
अरे तू आ तो सही।
पर माँ,
ये जो खिचड़ी है सिर्फ खाने के लिए नहीं बनाती मैं। ये सीधी सी खिचड़ी इंसान को। जा वहां से प्रेशर कुकर लेके आ जा।
माँ हम बता रहे हैं ना, हमें ये सब नहीं सीखना।
अच्छा मुनमुन, आप मेरी बात ध्यान से सुनना। ये जो प्रेशर कुकर है ये बिल्कुल हमारी समाज की तरह है। समाज यानी बाहर की दुनिया। जिस तरह समाज लोगों पर दबाव डालकर उन्हें तराश देता है, उसी तरह ये प्रेशर कुकर खाने पर दबाव डालकर खाना पका देता है, जिससे कभी हमें मिलता है बहुत स्वादिष्ट खाना और कभी जला हुआ। तो आज हम बनाना सीखेंगे एक नारीवादी।
नारीवादी? उसका क्या मतलब होता है माँ?
आसान शब्दों में एक नारीवादी वो है जो सभी लिंगों को एक नजरिए से देखे और सभी के हक के लिए समान रूप से आवाज उठाए। तो सबसे पहले हम इसमें डालेंगे घी और कुछ खड़े मसाले। ये खिचड़ी के सबसे जरूरी और सबसे पहले सामग्री में आते हैं। इसी तरह एक नारीवादी का जागरूक रहना यानी समाज में हो रही घटनाओं और भूमिकाओं से अवगत रहना उसके लिए बहुत जरूरी है।
माँ, आप खिचड़ी बना रही हो ना?
तुम इधर ध्यान दो। और ये जो प्याज है ये तुम्हारी नामंजूरी का प्रतीक है।
माँ नामंजूरी मतलब?
नामंजूरी मतलब पहले तो प्याज तुम्हें खूब रुलाएंगे, जैसे पहले नामंजूरी भी तुम्हें खूब रुलाएगी, मगर जैसे ही इन्हें इसमें डालोगी और लगातार पकाओगी तो देखोगी कि ये धीरे धीरे नरम पड़ जाएंगे। ये देखो कैसे इसमें नरम पड़ गए हैं। अब ये तुम्हें वो तकलीफ नहीं देंगे जो पहले इन्हें काटते वक्त हुई। वैसे ही समय के साथ तुम अपने सभी अनुभवों को यानी अच्छे और बुरे अनुभवों को स्वीकार करने लगो।
अच्छा, फिर उसके बाद क्या होता है माँ?
अब हम इसमें डालेंगे ये अदरक और लहसुन का पेस्ट। ये कुकर में जाते ही देखो कैसे छींटे छोड़ने लगते हैं। ऐसे ही जब तुम समाज में अपने विचार लेकर जाओगी, उनके लिए आसान नहीं होगा तुम्हारे विचारों को स्वीकार करना, मगर समय के साथ तुम उनकी सोच बदलने में कामयाब हो पाओगे। अब देखो कैसे शांत पड़ गया है ये।
अरे माँ, इसकी तो गंध भी चली गई।
और अब बारी आती है इन लाल लाल टमाटरों की। बिल्कुल इनके रंग की तरह ये जो टमाटर हैं तेरे साथी स्त्रियों के प्रति तेरे प्यार और तेरे सहयोग का प्रतीक है। जब इस मिश्रण में मिलेंगे तभी तो इस मिश्रण का रूप निखरेगा। अब जब जागरूकता, अपनापन, प्यार और सहनशीलता मिल जाए तो इसमें थोड़ा स्वाद अनुसार साहस और थोड़ा आवश्यकता अनुसार आत्मविश्वास डालने से बनता है हमारा नारीवादी का तड़का।
और ये दाल और चावल का क्या करना है माँ?
ये जो दाल और चावल है ये इस खिचड़ी की सबसे जरूरी सामग्री है और इसे खिचड़ी में हमें एक समान रूप में डालना पड़ेगा, एक समान मात्रा में डालना पड़ेगा। ना चावल दाल से ज्यादा होना चाहिए और ना दाल चावल से ज्यादा। उसी तरह नारीवादी होने का ये मतलब नहीं है कि औरतों को आदमियों से ज्यादा होना चाहिए या आदमियों को औरतों के ऊपर हावी होना चाहिए। नारीवादी का मतलब है कि समाज में इन दोनों को एक समान पद मिलना चाहिए। और अब आखिरी में जाएगा थोड़ा सा पानी डालकर हम इस खिचड़ी को और नारीवादी के इन मूल्यों को एक साथ मिलाकर इसको ढक्कन लगा के 2 सीटी लगा देंगे। सभी परिक्रियाओं से बनती है सबकी पसंदीदा खिचड़ी। और इनके साथ आज तू बनी एक
सच्ची नारीवादी।
बिल्कुल।
तो ये थी तुम्हारी आज की सीख, समझी पारू? और तुम राहुल?
जी।
और अब बारी आती है इन लाल लाल टमाटरों की। पापा नहीं हिलाना है।
I literally took 5 takes of the same one dialogue.
I do not think there is a better way to address gender bias than by the parallel drawn in this film between khichdi and feminism, both being integral to our lives. Now, moving on to the next short film, which portrays the dilemma of a mother when her own daughter is found to be the prime suspect in a murder case. The film focuses on capturing the intricacies between family and duty and the choice that a mother is faced with. Presenting to you Aberration by Team TC002.
So how was school? The usual? Really? I thought everyone would be a bit shaken up because of Aryan.
Bindu, please, not at the dinner table.
Right, no shock talk at home. But it's just so horrible to see someone as young as. Also, do you remember we met his father at the PTA meeting?
Did we?
Yeah, Santosh Yadav, the MLA, now he is the DM.
Well, he must have a lot of things he needs to get where he is.
Well, yeah, that's a hunch as well. Can you pass me the rice? Rice. By the way, Seema Chachi's birthday is coming. Why don't you wear that pendant that you got for your birthday, na? It look good with that black dress. Pendant? The gold pendant, Diya. Yes?
We have a lead.
What is it?
I don't know how to tell you this. Dia is a suspect again. We found a pendant at the crime scene.
What? How?
I see her every day, Bindu. I'm sure. She lied in the testimony. You need to bring her in.
Ashok? What the hell is happening? Ashok?
I'm sorry, I can't let them take Dia away.
Where is she? Let me speak to her.
It was an accident. Aryan, she had no other choice.
Dia, open the door. Ashok, I want to talk to her.
I can't. We have to leave. I'll take her someplace safe.
No, Ashok, don't do this.
I'm sorry.
Inspector Bindunath's daughter, Dia Nath, is the prime suspect for Aryan Yadav's murder. Ma'am, what do you have to say for yourself?
No one's above the law. The suspect will be brought to custody and justice will be served. Dad, dinner's ready.
That was a really moving story. Now, I would like to hand over the podium to Bhavya.
We would now like to call upon Madam Shashikala Gurpur for gracing the audience with a humble presence. Dr. Shashikala Gurpur is our Dean, Faculty of Law, Symbiosis International Deemed University, and Director of Symbiosis Law School, Pune. Ma'am is a Fulbright scholar and a distinguished academician and orator, having presented more than 225 invited lectures, workshops, seminars globally. Recently, she has been listed in the book 100 Legal Luminaries of India by LexisNexis and is a distinguished member of the editorial board of LexisNexis Butterworths, Journal of IPR by CSIR, Law and Policy Journal Dublin, Ireland, and the Polish Law Review. Dr. Shashikala Gurpur acted as an advisor to research project and publication for the Asian Network of Women in Communication, sponsored by WACC UK from 1999 to 2004. Ma'am has recently been presented with the annual Kittur Rani Chennamma Award by the government of Karnataka for her work toward the empowerment of women. I would now like to invite Dr. Shashikala Gurpur ma'am to say a few words.
Good evening, dear students who are in the organizing committee of this event, LAME or IBTIDA or whatever combination of the two. Probably you created a platform under which you want to name it as LAME for this year. Maybe next year it will be more than a moment. I think LAME means moment, right? So I would be very happy to welcome our judge and our young professor Nikhil, our own Dr. Manika and Professor Garima, who are our bright professors who are into the media teaching or media evaluation or a combination of the two, and also very politically very astute in views. So you couldn't find better judges. Thank you for that objective selection based on the achievements of the panel. I'm also very happy that when I suggested this as a new event in Symbiosis, our cultural festival Symbhav, we had a couple of events in the background. One was Professor Nikhil being with you all and giving you a film appreciation capsule, that invigorating serious study and that resulting in a 2 credit course on films for law students, which Anupam sir developed based on the curriculum that myself and Professor Kshitij developed. And then we have had recently another event where we put films in the center stage in terms of gender rights, by gender champions. So in that context, we thought that Golden Jubilee year of Symbiosis could be greeted with some new flagship events being kickstarted this year. Our ambition was to celebrate the entire year with the inter-campus film competition and film festival, along with the media and liberal arts institutes. But that never took off the ground because of the pandemic. Nevertheless, we didn't want to get defeated. We wanted to utilize this opportunity. And we wanted to open it up to the talents across the country and across the world. The two samples itself would convince all of us why this was a great idea and why there is a need for this, because with the convergence of communication methodologies and convergence of the media and filmmaking not being a very privileged activity, therefore becoming a privileged segment's voice, unless that segment is sensitive, like Satyajit Ray or Shyam Benegal or, directors of the year we have seen across the world, the maker of Gandhi, the maker of Salam Bombay, etc. So the unseen sides, we have a saying, what the poet didn't see, the critic saw. What the critic didn't see, the satirist saw. What the satirist didn't see, the cynic saw. So often seeing is very important, the vision with which you see. And that seeing could unveil some of the unseen dimensions, because its vision is not enough, eyes are not enough, but there should be a heart which quivers with the pain, with the suffering, with the injustice. So we thought we'll make this opportunity for law topics. I mean, law topics are essentially bound up with justice or the lack of it. Law topics are bound up with human problems. And films are the best ways to document those, either in a documentary setting or in a fictional setting. We saw both films as samples. Both are very well made. So this is not a competition, in my opinion. It's a kind of celebration of ideas, celebration of possibility. I mean, look at those young people creating such brilliant films. I can't think of it. If I were a student, I'm imagining myself, I wouldn't be that savvy with technology, first of all. Secondly, that kind of unseen angle to be brought in, and the way they have made the film language to speak for itself. I mean, this is amazing. I don't know how many of them are expert media students, how many of them are mixed students like our liberal arts or law students. We don't know. But even in that unknown, the unknown is better for me as a person who is viewing it as a law person and also as a connoisseur of films. It's great. I had this beautiful experience in Europe where we had a separate theater called Kino, and that was only for parallel cinema. And our weekends used to be booked for that. And we would see in the audience also, only 60 to 70% of the hall will be filled. It was not a separate cinema. It was in the commercial theaters. They would account a little slot for these parallel cinema. Otherwise, people would miss it, and parallel cinema makers will not be encouraged. What I saw was both the pieces which were played there could be a very good resource for us as law teachers. That there's a better way of communicating the background in the law, impact of the law, the causes which lead to injustice, or how justice is mocked also. What kind of power structure, which is, I personally find power as the biggest problem ever seen in human evolution. So how does power impact, or how does everyone become a channel of power? So let me see, I will not preempt your experience as connoisseurs. You may like the characters there, you may like the beauty of the girls and boys who are there, you may love the music there. So let me not, it is like, one poet told me once that we should never limit the beauty. I mean, if I'm writing about the leaf, I should be able to bring about the whole tree in the description of the leaf, the flower's beauty in the description of the. If I'm looking at the flower, then let me not exclude the beauty of leaf. You know, in India, we always cut the rose with the little leaf because we don't want that leaf to be losing the value. You know? So I wouldn't want to, because for me, at the end of the day, this is the aesthetics of that should not be lost with our drab critical evaluation. I mean, I can go into that. I'm trained in that and somehow enjoyed it for very long in life because that got me the name and opportunity in life. But that is such a limiting factor when it comes to the total experience of creativity, which you see here, which deserves to be celebrated. Of course, a panel has a tough job. I'm very sure it's not easy. There will be an excellent star in some part. There will be an excellent star in another part. So how do you compare the stars? I think that is where light years come into probably the closeness to the reality or closeness to the earth. Probably light years are the ones which are going to determine where NASA is going to target it or where Elon Musk will target it. But it is going to be, for a dreamer, it will be the most shining star, which will be more important. So I don't know if the panel will take dreamer's view or Elon Musk's view or NASA's view. It's up to them. I mean, everyone's, I can go on and on this aesthetic dimension and evaluation dimension that we use. You know, the way in which one of the poets said that seeing the universe in the grain of sand or ocean in a drop of water, or then just seeing it as drop of water. That's what Elon Musk would do. But the poet would not do that, or a filmmaker would not do that. The filmmaker would see what nobody else sees. This camera is a mischievous thing, you know. When Aparna Sen made her movie, you would see the unsaid conversations between the characters. Now, how are they captured are very interesting. So I congratulate our entire student advisory board for this adventure, embarking on this journey, but not sacrificing or compromising their loyalty to the core mission of justice and their expertise in law, and at the same time roping in people like Nikhil and others who are very smart and who are very up to date on what's going on in this world. And I'm sure that at the end they would also leave a message in terms of how not to allow messages to dominate your life than your own thinking, and once again the ticking heart. For me, I'm a person of heart. I always feel my intellect should be finally governed by the heart, otherwise it becomes meaningless. Similarly, the camera has to be held in the hand, but the hand has to be or the idea has to be pumped from the heart. So the heart of human existence, the power, not to miss the pain and suffering because of power, and also the possibility of power. I mean, that's my hope, you know, that the power being used for human good, if not wipe out, to minimize the impact of these toxic things like suffering. So all the best and enjoy the festival. I'm sure that, I'm not sure how many audiences are here. I'm sure that this will be more successful than the conclave we had, because this is something which is very close to the heart of our students. I'm sure the compeer will make it very clear to us. All the best, and I congratulate all the participants, and I thank the panelists, and big congratulations to those who conceived this idea, notified it, and brought it within our Golden Jubilee celebrations ethos, despite the challenging time. All the best.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Over to you, Anvita.
All right, so now in continuation of the event, moving on to the third and the final film of the evening. This film explores various significant themes like that of fundamental rights, police brutality, and the exploitation of the weaker sections of society. The film envisages in educating the common man on his rights and empowering him so that he can stand up to the system. Now presenting The Shield by Team TC006.
CID. Here he is.
I can explain it to you. Give me 2 weeks of time and I'll do something. Until then, just take a look at the bag.
What's in the bag?
Open it, sir. Take a look.
We've got the orders from the Chief Justice to produce the accused before the High Court.
But we can't turn on our dear president, can we?
Nope. Not him. But we got to turn somebody in, right? Give me the borrowers list of the bank.
May I come in, sir? Sir, I have borrowed only 1 crore from the bank. Look at the way they have created fake documents and they're saying it's 15 crores.
Don't you worry. I'll look into it.
Yes, sir?
CID.
Sir, may I know why you are here? What exactly do you want from me? Sir, do you know what you're doing? Do you have the search warrant to search my home?
How dare you question us? Do you think we are here without a reason?
We are just doing our duty. You don't know how big a trouble you are in right now.
Pull this man into our jeep. We shall show him all the warrants that he needs at a station.
Sir, what's going on? Sir, why are you doing this to me? Sir, give me time. I'll speak to my lawyer and cooperate with you.
Chal.
What's the plan of action with this fellow?
Well, you know, the usual read technique. The poor fellow seems timid and psychologically weak anyway. Won't be a problem obtaining a confession out from him. It's not like we care about justice anyway. If we make our share of money, I'll be happy. You've been accused of borrowing a very large sum of money. You fraud!
Sir, what large sum? I don't know what you're talking about.
You're an accused. Do you know that? We can really ruin your life if you're not cooperative with us. You've borrowed 15 crores of money. Haven't you?
No, sir. I don't have that kind of money with me.
Don't try to act innocent. How did you borrow so much money? And where is it now?
Really, sir? Believe me, sir. I don't have that kind of money with me.
We have enough proof to prove you wrong. Have a look.
Sir, this is manipulated, sir. This can't be true.
Don't lie to me, you. You want me to shove this lot up? Huh?
Sir, please don't torture me like this. I haven't done anything wrong.
he can outsmart us. Here, sign this now.
Confess, man. Confess.
Sir.
Trying to act innocent in front of us.
I don't know. I don't know, sir.
Confess.
I don't know,
Confess,
sir.
I say.
Sir, please, sir. Sir.
If you confess to us, good things will happen. A lesser charge, a chance to go home, a good life. Don't you think you deserve that? Yes, you do. You will come back tomorrow at the same time. Alright? Here comes our scapegoat.
Let him wait. We don't want to be done with this case this soon, do we?
Finally, have you decided what you have to tell us today?
You better have decided to give us the information we want from you. You want us to give you a peaceful life, don't you?
We are all your allies at the end of the day, buddy. You give us what we need. And we'll give you your freedom.
Now tell me, how many crores have you borrowed from the bank?
Don't you dare keep mum when we ask you something. Speak up!
Sir, don't you think we are being too sweet with him today? I think we have to give him a taste of our medicine. Do you know how many bullets this gun can hold? Do you know what it is capable of doing once the bullet gets into your body?
Sir, it's better we arrest him.
Sir, right to be informed immediately of the reason for arrest. What is the reason, sir? Right to a humane condition of detention and freedom from torture.
Fine. Speak up now.
I have the right to remain silent. Right against exploitation, Article 23 and 24, Bahubai vs. State of Gujarat. Right to fair investigation is also a part of constitutional rights guaranteed under Article 20 and 21 of Constitution of India. Right to consult a lawyer. To be defended by a lawyer of my choice.
Damn, this guy's got...
Yeah, I know. We might even lose our jobs if he approaches the Human Rights Commission.
We've anyway got our shares from the bank president. Let's turn him in like we have to and save our jobs.
Who the lawyer who gave him this idea?
I understand your pain. The concept of police is to provide a feeling of security to the common man. Although there are officers who work sincerely towards it, there are many of them who don't give a damn about the common man. Sadly, because of such officers, it is the same common man who has to become the scapegoat to all the crimes of the rich and powerful. These officers have merely become puppets to the influential lot. Do you know who is to be blamed for all this? It's you! It is the same common man who let it happen for all these years. It is the same common man who has stigmatized the police and exhibited all unwanted fears. While they are also humans, like you and me. It is the same common man who has believed that they are the only ones in power, while in reality, they too are bounded by a set of rules. It's the same common man who has assumed that these officers are not accountable for their actions and their actions have no consequences. It is the same common man who is either lazy to exercise his rights or thinks what the society will think of him if he takes a stand. It is the same common man who thinks he's not capable of doing anything about it. While in reality, there is a shield called the Fundamental Human Rights and the Human Rights Commission, solely made for our protection in a democratic country like ours. Don't you make the same mistake, and good things shall follow. Now listen to me. Do this and nothing will happen.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Here. We are living in a world full of threats. The only thing that makes us not vulnerable is to know our rights.
That was an exceptionally empowering movie. I'm sure we all got to learn something from the movie. With this, now the entries for the evening have come to an end. And now we proceed to the much awaited audience poll. 50% of the final scores for the film entries depend on this poll, so this vote will carry a lot of weight. On your screen now, you will see a pop-up option for the audience poll. Clicking on the same will direct you to a question on which these results depend. All our audience is requested to vote within the next 5 minutes, starting now. We now call upon Mr. Nikhil Narkar, sir, to shed some light on filmmaking and make a critical remark on the presented short films. Sir?
Thank you so much. I am I'm very honored to be invited as the judge for the film festival that you have put up. We received some excellent entries, and it was a very difficult job. I'll come to that in a minute. But let me take this opportunity to thank Dr. Shashikala Gurupur, who has been such a wonderful support for all the young budding lawyers, okay, coming from Symbiosis Law School. And I'm also delighted that she has taken interest not only in creating a very vibrant law school, and I know that because I keep having conversations with you students in some of my classes. A lot of you also come to SSLA to have those conversations, either inside the class or outside. Some of you have also shown courage and enough interest to be part of some drama presentations at the liberal arts school that we have, and therefore through the interactions I know how much interest she as the guiding spirit has has given all of us. uh, and and apart from that, I can also see how much interest she has taken in creating different spaces uh, for students which are not academically constrained, which take us beyond what classrooms and the four walls of classrooms can teach us, and probably into spheres of life that are extremely important for us to experience uh, ourselves as human beings, right? No other animal species seems to do something like this at the level at which human beings can. Having film festivals, thinking about the world in poetic terms, dreaming about the world, struggling to make the world better, not only for yourself but also for the others, uh, in your community. These are some of the virtues that are essential, I think, for all of us to learn and imbibe. And I think the presence of such a uh, such a head at the uh, right at the front of the institution, I think helps immensely. And therefore I want to express my gratitude to Dr. Shashikala Gurpur as well for being there in such difficult times, where I believe even in our isolations, even in our quarantines, I think we need to figure out spaces in which we can come together. And I take this opportunity to thank the organizers of Lamhe as well, and all the student volunteers who have done that, who have made it possible for us to come together. Don't we as human beings always look forward to opportunities to be with other human beings, no matter uh, whether we are forced to be there, whether we want to be there intentionally or not? As probably Aristotle said, okay, human beings are social animals. They might be born alone, and they might die alone, but in the middle of that, in the middle of birth and death, I think is where human life is lived, and it is to the questions of life that law or liberal arts devote themselves to. In a sense, taking forward from how Professor Gurpur asked us to think about the world, right, in terms of power, to think about power as coming from top, but also rising from the bottom, to shape our lives for our own sake, to use the power that we have of collectivity, of conscience, of rationality, okay, to organize our life and make it better for everyone else. And in a sense, I think it is better, it is necessary for us to think about human life in terms of power, operating at two different ends, okay, as it were. And and I think what is also interesting is that in different ways, whether you are a social scientist, whether you are a scientist working in conventionally scientific fields, as a physicist or as a doctor, or as a medical professional, or whether you are a poet, whether you are a, a lawyer, or whether you are an intellectual or a filmmaker, all of us in different ways, I think, keep exploring these intersections of power, human beings, where life is lived. Life is not only lived, but where life is also loved. Probably not only loved, but in times of distress, also hated. But in such times, it is, as Professor Gurpur said, it's the heart that sometimes shows us the hope. And it is with that hope that we live, and we try and make sense of the world through that heart and the hope, which we can see reflected in films, in poetry, in novels, in short stories, and every other experience of life at different levels. uh, as a filmmaker myself, as a teacher of cinema, as a teacher of social sciences and humanities, I try to look at life from this particular perspective. I also try to understand cinema from this particular perspective. For me, life is a struggle. Struggle is not necessarily a bad word. It can be a good struggle as well. Struggle is what makes us human. Struggle is what also offers us possibilities of making our lives better. So I tend to look at life in terms of struggles of different kinds. And at the same time, I think I look at films in terms of a struggle that is there at the core, at the essence of what is called cinema as well. What is that struggle about? I keep wondering all the time. Probably that struggle is about telling a story on one hand, and stopping that story with the beauty of images that we see. So what do we see at the essence of cinema, at the heart of cinema? Probably is this particular kind of duel that keeps happening between storytelling on one hand, that we want to know what happens later. We want to know, we want to know, we want to go ahead, we want to go ahead. And at the same time, the power of spectacle to ask us to stop, to observe each frame carefully, to notice that cut that happens between two images, where one image leads us to another, right? A power of camera which shows us a beautiful scene, whether it happens internally or externally, right? But which wants to hold our attention. So on one hand, in cinema, we have a power that propels us forward all the time. On the other hand, we have power of cinema, the same cinema, that asks us to stop, to take a stock, to understand, to philosophize, okay, to contemplate, right, and take our time. And I think if we look at histories of cinema, various cinemas of the world, right since their inception, probably this is the struggle with which every filmmaker uh, works with, and every filmmaker struggles. They they take us, okay, through particular stories about human life, stories that touch various aspects of life, be them in terms of characters who come from marginalized communities, or who are oppressed, who are depressed, who find themselves at the receiving end of some kind of injustice. Right? That is the narrative that challenges us to think about justice and injustice and power, and our ability to change that dynamic. If on one hand it is that, cinema's beauty lies probably in, on one hand, getting the narrative and the spectacle together, getting the storytelling and the image together, right? And in such a way that both complement each other beautifully, seamlessly. Or, but that is not the only way in which films are made. Films can also be made where this tension between storytelling and image can be brought out together by pointing out how incommensurate probably storytelling and image are. That is another way of making films, and a lot of filmmakers make such films. What is called the experimental tradition of cinema probably works with this. Probably what is called popular cinema works with the earlier tendency, where narrative and image complement each other. In experimental cinema, probably narrative and image contrast each other. And and I think a filmmaker can be successful. I'm not saying monetarily successful. You can be monetarily a failure. You can be monetarily a success. But a successful filmmaker for filmmakers like me is that filmmaker probably who is able to comment on this tension between narrative on one hand and spectacle on the other, either to resolve it or to take it further and see if someone else can resolve it in their own way after watching a film. The films that we got to see, okay, are examples probably of both these tendencies. On one hand, we have films, okay, like for example, a film like Aberration is a film that probably fits into the category of experimental cinema, right, where it is trying to point out the tension that exists between narrative and spectacle. Right? On the other hand, we had a wonderful film, okay, like for example, uh, The Final Confessions. Okay, what a beautiful film it was, yeah, where it began with a wonderful shot of four people sitting together, right, and in one straight line, and that seemed artificial straight away. But hang on, it was artificial, and that was the point, right? That the film is trying to make. Yeah, I don't want to reveal what happens there because there might be a lot of people who want to watch that film later, right? Probably the filmmakers will make it available on YouTube. But in that one shot, okay, one could see the possibility that this filmmaker had of exploring the topic, both cinematically, that is using cinematography, editing, acting, sound, narrative, and mise en scène. Uh, Using all these categories, the filmmaker had a wonderful view of cinematic work, right? And it told a very heart-wrenching story of an individual who's oppressed. Okay. And and that film had such wonderful moments where, for example, I think sent some of the time snaps to the organizers. If they feel fit, they can show these time snaps from the films, okay, where a beautiful camera work can be seen when friends are discussing, okay, how they are going to have fun and how they are having fun with uh, members of their community. Right? You can see how adept the filmmakers are in shifting the camera, and that is a delightful moment in the film. Okay. Another such moment in the film happens when an event is redoubled, right? And redoubling in cinema is very very difficult because it stops the narrative, it stops the flow of the story. But here the filmmaker has successfully redoubled the narrative. Okay, he has redoubled or they have redoubled one scene from the film and have taken it from a different angle, and it is such so refreshing to see that coming from people who are making films right now, okay, to experiment with narrative, to experiment with time, right, to experiment with what we see on the screen, as if these moments have come from the heart and not only from the head, right, to use Professor Gurku's words. And at the same time, we had another beautiful film called Picha, right, a film that confuses you as audience, right? Why does it confuse? Not because its message is unclear, but because it is trying to play with cinematic language. There are two, three scenes in that film. The way in which the film sets up the expectations, okay, with advertisement, okay, a sarcastic take probably on the commercialization of psychological help that is needed by the society. Yeah. And it gives us yeah, this is the film that I'm talking about. Yeah, it it gives us such wonderful close moments with objects around you. It gives us a fantastic close view of a screen. Yeah, the screen that is within the screen, right, to use a Shakespearean terminology, like play within the play, a screen within the screen, right? And at the same time, yeah, this is the scene. I mean, if you want to watch it, let's go ahead.
All that much. All I did was look at Alice.
Look at the screen within the screen, and this cut, a beautiful cut from the previous shot, and look at the changes in colors of clothing, and look at the tight framing, look at the angular way in which the actress is sitting to the camera and her elbow is almost pushing towards the camera. It makes you think uh, about the possibility of of what we call the theme of psychological breakdown. What does psychological breakdown seem like visually? It's cutting, it's sharp, right? And a film like Picha did justice to that, right? At the same time, okay, we'll see this scene and then move on. Such a beautiful moment of a person who you remember, who is missing from your life, and what a beautiful piece of acting as well. So believable, so convincing. All right. And
There was maybe someone or
look at this particular
something
frame,
that was
which is
there
now
when
mirrored,
things took
right?
place.
Which is
And
which
You're
is
not ready to
ulta,
disclose the identity
right?
of this person
As
to
it were,
us.
and you start
Not ready to
wondering
tell us
how
who was
exactly the
from
filmmakers have
sharing
made
our
it ulta. Why did they do that? To break the earlier monotony of
period of
conversation,
affair that
or to
failed because
suggest
people
how
were
inverted our view of
years
reality
back.
is, although it is a horizontal inversion nonetheless, right? how do we how do we capture the essence of a situation that has gone wrong, right? And I think this film does that very, very well, right? And I when I watched the film, I was silent for 2 minutes, right? And then it ends on such a hopeful and beautiful note, okay, with hands held, right? And this is the other film that I was talking about, the Final Confessions, right? Where the frontal view of the camera tells you how, look at the lighting, so beautifully done, right? And then the camera pans towards the right and shows you four people sitting in one row, right? Tension full on the faces
मत
of
करना,
all,
कितनी बार समझाया है तुझे?
right? And you know how many people are there, and you can sense that this is a story of a family, a man, right? And so
Sorry,
on and so
mummy.
forth. Right? And this is the other scene that I was talking about, where the scene is redoubled, right, from a completely different angle, where the father comes, picks up his objects, right, and goes outside. Such moments of redoubling is
अंजलि
very,
जल्दी करो
very,
यार, we are getting late. हाँ
very
हाँ आई.
rare in cinema.
क्या आई, कितना टाइम लगाते हो आप लोग? चलो चलो. We are already late यार. चलो. ये गेट बंद कर लेना और टीवी मत देखना आज. अरे वो
This is
बच्चे
one
लिए
way
संभाल लेंगे सब, आ जाओ.
of shooting it where the camera stays close to the parents first, and when the parents are out of the home, it stops following them, and then it follows two other characters, right, that are there, the sister and the brother. Both are undergoing different tensions in their life, right? And then it stops at the brother to point out the centrality of his narrative, right? His story to the narrative. And that I thought was such a wonderful moment. Okay? Uh, Only that what I believed, okay, was that in the Final Confessions, it, you know, it it's such an entertaining film. It's such a tense film. It makes you want to watch the film over and over again to see how the narrative ends. Why does the narrative end in the way it does, right? The only thing I thought
यार
was
तू
that the
बोल देना
film
मेरे
could
को
be slightly
यार मैं चाहती हूँ
shorter. Okay. And let's pause for a moment to look at what the camera does here. Although there is a lot of lag, okay, maybe because the file is heavy and the camera movement is extremely swift. I love this scene in the film. Right? There are certain scenes that stay with you in your heart all the time. And this is one scene from the film that stayed in my heart because of the way in which the intimacy between the friends is shown. Although this is not the intimacy that we expect for a better life, right? But this is a group of friends who are discussing particular things that we don't want them to get into.
नवाबी नहीं घटेगी तुम लड़कियों की.
इसमें नवाबी क्या है? मैंने कभी किसी लड़की को आगे से अप्रोच नहीं किया.
And look at the framing. Okay, the person with whom we want to identify is staying in the background. But we are closer to this group. What a
इसको
beautiful
क्या हुआ? अभी
frame.
तो आया था. वैसे टाइम क्या हुआ है?
6 बज गए.
6 बज गए. 5 बजे राघव के साथ कॉफी पे जाना था.
ओ राघव, टॉपर फंसा लिया. हाँ?
यार मैं सोच रही थी, पर अब तुम लोग आ गए हो तो मैं सोच रही हूँ रहने देती हूँ. पर वो वेट करेगा, उसका क्या? हाँ तो करने दे. वेट करने वालों की कमी है क्या? उसके लिए नहीं तो कॉफी के लिए चली जा.
Right. The only thing that I thought about this film was that it was a bit too long. If the filmmakers had cut it short, and if they had worked on the logic of shock in uh, in the uh, in the film, okay, the logic of short film is that it works on shock, and generally, if that shock is not revealed, if that shock is kept subtle, then probably it makes hell lot of difference.
Just a sec. I'm alone at home. There is
अंजलि
someone
जल्दी करो
at
यार.
the door. I have to open the door. So you watch the scene till then, and I'll come back in like 1 minute. Sorry for this.
अंजलि जल्दी करो यार. We are getting late.
हाँ हाँ आई.
क्या आई? कितना टाइम लगाते हो आप लोग यार?
चलो.
We are already late यार.
हाँ बस चलो. ये दरवाजा बंद कर लेना. ऑरेंज टीवी मत देखना. हाँ मम्मी.
अरे वो बच्चे नहीं है, संभाल लेंगे, संभाल जाओ.
Right, and look at the last scene from the final confessions. Right, it shows you wonderful lighting, right? And it works with the same frontality that you see at the beginning of the film. Right, that the same frontal shot of the actors is is repeated here again because this is an important moment in the film. Right.
मेरा एक इम्पोर्टेंट फोन आ रहा है. बात करनी जरूरी है. एक मिनट. हेलो.
And then the step printing technique, whereby the psychological ups and downs are represented through the image. Okay, it's these are such powerful moments in the film. The only problem I think that I thought was that one, that it did not adhere to the theme very tightly given to me by the organizers, which was that it needed to have some relevance to social content. Okay, a content that is about society being reflected in a slightly critical manner. And what I thought was that, okay, the narratives of a broken man, okay, are rampant in the Indian society, right? Probably now is the time to look at ourselves very critically and carefully in order to figure out whether that is the situation in comparison to, okay, a lot of other uh, problems that are faced by the society, okay, where it might seem like a story of an individual, but is it necessarily a story of an individual, right? And therefore I thought that on two counts, okay, this film slightly lagged behind the other films. I don't mean to say that this film is bad. I love the film. I watched it 3 times, okay, and discussed it with my wife who just walked past, okay, right now. So many times we have discussed this. We loved the scenes that we picked out for us to view here. We just thought that this could be much shorter, and therefore it could, the filmmakers could have a little more critical view of what short filmmaking does mean, right? Making cinema, making films is not only about telling a story, right? Uh, Probably a difference between, I'm not talking about the films here, definitely. I'm talking about the films that exist outside. Like, the difference between good cinema and great cinema is probably this: good cinema tells a good story and entertaining. A great cinema tells a good story while commenting on its own formal structure. That is the difference between good cinema and great cinema. All the great films that you remember, okay, be it Charlie Chaplin, okay, modern times, that Charlie Chaplin is telling you a great story, but is also reflecting on the technology called sound and its integration into Hollywood cinema. Whether you're talking about uh, Sergei Eisenstein, the great Soviet filmmaker, who is trying to tell a great story of a socialist resurrection, okay, but while commenting on film form through the use of the technique called montage. Okay, whether you talk about great Italian neorealist filmmakers or the film noir filmmakers from Hollywood, or whether you're talking about Mizogi Gucci and Akira Kurosawa from Japan, right? Or whether you're talking about contemporary filmmakers, for example, David Fincher from Hollywood, okay, or Amir Khan from India, right, or Nagaraj Manjure from Marathi film industry, or Wong Kar Wai from the Hong Kong film industry, okay, or Hao Xiao Xian, okay, from the Taiwanese film industry, or you know probably one of the greatest filmmakers, Andrei Tarkovsky, from the Soviet tradition, from the anti-Soviet tradition, okay, or be it some other new filmmakers. All of them have the ability to talk about, tell not only great stories with great emotion, passion, etc., but they are doing so at the same time reflecting on the form that exists to tell stories, right? And I thought this film, by shortening itself, could have started reflecting on what this short film format can be like. Okay. Uh, Another film that we had was Dosh, okay, which talks about a very traumatic childhood experience of a man, okay, and that experience is repeated again, okay, later in his life. But as I said, uh, what we need to do in cinema is think critically about about the society. So whenever anyone comes to me in my film appreciation classes and asks me, how do we make films, right? What is a good way of making films? My answer to them is that you need to learn something other than cinema. Cinematic skills you can acquire. You can go outside, you can learn photography, you can learn editing, you can learn sound, okay, you can learn direction, you can learn production, you can do all those things. But you won't be a good filmmaker unless and until you also start connecting that understanding with the wider society that you come from. Now here we need to think about whether, and this is, look at the first shot of the film called Dosh, right? Such a beautiful tight shot, right? It focuses on steps, okay, and it shows us what the condition of the man is who's entering the house. He's pitch drunk, right? And violence begins there, right? The first frame itself is violence, right? And such a wonderful way of doing so, right? A shot of legs is then sort of, you come back and then you get to see the entire scene. And what I liked about many of these films, I think five of the films that followed the format, is actors are not in the same space. Okay, they have shot actors in different space, and it's so difficult to do that in cinema. When actors are not in same space, how do you maintain continuity? How do you maintain angles? How do you maintain uh, continuity of action, continuity of looks, continuity of objects, continuity of color scheme, continuity of clothes, lighting? Okay, and I understand the immense challenges that the filmmakers faced, right, while doing that. However, at the same time, I thought that the three films that we have talked about so far probably lacked uh, a reflection on its own format, and not only on that, but on the larger society. Well, I won't consider Picha uh, to be guilty of that a little bit. And sorry to use the word guilty. I don't want to. I don't like using such words because there is nothing wrong with that. The only thing is, when we come from a society, our films should reflect our ability to think about the society more at a more complex level, right? And hence, a lot of reading about the society through novels, through plays, through poetry, through critical analysis, through journalism, through readings of cases in courts, law, all that is needed to make good films. Good cinema depends on that. Good cinema does not depend only on filmmaking ability. Good cinema depends on, okay, the wider worldview, the vision that Professor Gurpur talked about in the initial minutes of this program. The vision that cinema gives us, and that vision is not a vision of necessarily only of beauty. That vision is a vision of critically analyzing the society at multiple levels, not only at one level. And with that view, I think we picked up the other three films that were there. Okay, I'll briefly go into the reasons about why we picked up those films. Although there is not a great margin, I think 0.5 was the margin between films that lost out and the films that won. Okay, and that's all. That's such a hard thing. Okay, not only for the filmmaker to accept, but also as a judge. Okay, it was a very hard thing for me to accept. Probably I kept delaying submitting the results, okay, till the last moment, because I was, I was struggling against my own decision, right? Saying, how can I do that to this film, because I like these moments in these films, and how can that film win over this? But when I did the when I gave low marks to the films that we picked up as winners, then I said, no, but how can I do that to this film? This film has these many beautiful moments, and it has this for its going for it, and so on and so forth. And you can understand the dilemma, right? When all the films are of the same quality, okay, and handling the issues in a mature manner, right? It's a very tough decision. Right. Probably I'll begin with the film called The Shield. Okay, I love the film. Okay, for its sheer pace. Okay, it goes along at such a fantastic pace, but at the same time, it also has a wonderful. It shows us the wonderful mastery of the filmmakers over framing, how the filmmakers framed. Okay, and not only in certain moments, but they frame the characters, okay, in wonderful critical manner in all the frames throughout the film. They don't lose their grip over that kind of organization of characters and objects, right? And this is what keeps you probably stuck to your chair to want to watch the film over and over again, right? Although I have a grouse against the filmmakers, and I'm going to talk about that grouse slightly more openly here, okay, because I don't think I'm wrong. I'm in the wrong to do so. Uh, I think what we need to achieve in filmmaking is is give a message without being very open about it. A subtle message stays longer, okay, and is more effective than a direct message sometimes. A direct message might be influential for 2 years, 5 years, but cinema is a field that is not going to die very soon. Okay? Although there are prognostications about how cinema is dead, I think cinema will survive. Okay, as drama has survived, and drama has survived, and cinema has survived, and novel has survived, and poetry has survived, not because of its directness all the time, but also because of its subtlety. I found that although that subtlety existed in in the organization of actors on the stage, and somewhere we lost that subtlety in the message, in the theme, right? Where the law became the message in the end, where human responsibility is our own responsibility, the legal responsibility is our own responsibility, was the message that came out. Okay, although it became preachy, I believe that the film won because it had a wonderful sense of framing, wonderful sense of pacing, wonderful sense of development of the narrative. Okay, and despite uh, professional actors not being available, right? I think all the three films that we have picked, there are no professional actors there. You don't see actors reflecting their ages, actors having good makeup, for example, right? You can clearly see, but what does one do when COVID-19 has struck uh, us so hard, where it is impossible to get together, right? And we understand that students make films in such context where there is little money in the first place for an expensive medium and no actors on the other. But this film does that. It manages to give us a message in a wonderful way by organizing actors. Okay, although I thought sound was slightly of a limited quality, but I like to think that dubbing played its role. Okay, in uh, lowering that quality a little. If we can think about the original sound, probably the original language film is much better, okay, in terms of its sound. And therefore, I would like to ignore that aspect at the moment, okay, at such a young age. The other film I think that I found extremely interesting and fantastic is a film called Aberration. Right? Now, I think that is a film that has understood the logic of what short film making can be. It works on a logic of what is called shock. Right? The element of shock is beautifully captured there in one frame, right? Where the location changes from a house to a hideout, okay, which are then joined together by the bold declaration by the policewoman that, okay, it doesn't matter who has committed the crime, right? Nobody is above the law, right? And that is a hook, probably a very misleading hook that connects two spaces together, right? Because what we see is is that the situation has turned upside down, right? The situation has been made to stand on its head now, right? And that has been achieved in one single frame there with a change of location. Right? Also, the framing was very, very tight. The light was used in an extremely efficient manner. The yellow light that characterizes the house, okay, and the white light that characterizes the hideout. Okay, probably it may not have been an intentional switch, but it worked nevertheless, right? And that middle segment, and what it does is that through its brevity, it makes you think. It makes you think what happened, right? Why did this happen? How did this happen? And probably making you think, making you raise questions, okay, asking you to raise questions is the essence of short film making. And I don't think we can go away from that as yet. The film that has captured that essence is probably a film called Aberration, right? There is a wonderful middle scene in the film where you have the wife and the husband talking to each other through the door, and the screen is split in the middle, right? And what a fantastic scene, what fantastic imagination, right? This is what filmmaking does, probably brings the poet from your heart out, where your heart is split between the mother and the father, the law and the support, right, to the criminal. Your heart is split, and that split heart is replicated on the screen, which is wonderful to look at such a young age. And then we have a film called Khichdi. I think uh, this film was closest, probably, to the theme that was given to us, where social upliftment, social relevance, okay, of the theme was considered to be the topmost priority, right? And I've seen a lot of films, especially short films and uh, snippets, where feminism has been very sketchily represented, and where feminism has been portrayed as a philosophy that is anti men. And probably, okay, it is not like that, but I had no, when I teach this in my class, okay, or various classes, I find it extremely difficult to explain how feminism is not anti men, right? What this film does is that it tells that to us in such a simple way, where it uses the power of what is called metaphor, and uses that metaphor to talk about how feminism is not about being anti man, but it is about equality of a particular kind, right? Where equality and equity, okay, can exist together, right? Where feminism is not something where you necessarily beat up a person with like a stick, right? But it becomes like a book, right, which you learn from, which you go on reading, and then try and understand it through a simple example of cooking a khichdi, right? And at the same time, the filmmaker seems to have got the message across in a very, very short period of time, in a very, very simple manner. And that was the priority given to me by the organization, that the theme should come across in a very, very clear manner, right? Uh, and at the same time, the filmmaker managed to convey that theme through wonderful sense of color, wonderful sense of camera work, and wonderful acting, right? Such a wonderful actor the mother is in the film, right? So easy she is on the camera. By the way, she is the same actor probably who's there in the film Picha as well, right? And what wonderful acting there, to very easy to understand, to see, to stay with the image. Okay, and what the camera does there is that it does not divert our attention from what is happening. Okay, but without being extremely preachy, right? It tells us a simple story. Right. And I thought that was the strength of the film. Although I was slightly confused with the choice of music as well, because the choice of music and the color scheme and the acting stayed in contradiction with each other. The music was melodramatic, the acting was fun, right? And the color was black and white. And they all stood in contrast to each other. Okay, where if music made you slow, the acting made you uh, wish to see it further and further, and the black and white asked you to come out of the narrative and look at other aspects of the film, right? And I think that was the biggest strength of the film, which then is supported at the end of the film by getting it into color, okay, which was quite expected. And then the strength of the film lay in the fact of, again, what I call redoubling, right? The redoubling of a situation, which is very hard to get in a very short format called short film. Okay, in 3-4 minutes of time, you can't necessarily redouble the event. The first event where the mother is explaining what feminism is to child is redoubled in the end, okay, with the child growing up and teaching the same thing to the kids. Okay, where the necessity of not only uh, understanding what feminism is underscored, but also the necessity of passing it on in this particular manner, which does not become loud at any moment. Maybe the other films that we saw were somewhere guilty of making it loud a little bit, right? Whereas this film managed to give us a straight message, which was the necessity of the organizers, a straight message in a very, very straightforward manner, without being too loud about it, and having fun at the same time. Sometimes when we think about social relevance, we don't concentrate on the aspect of fun. I just want to end probably a little boring speech. I think the films were more interesting than my speech, right? But I'm sorry for that. That's my limitation. But I think what I want to urge all of you is to start enjoying what you do, and start doing what you enjoy more and more. Probably building the key to building a better society, key to building a happier society, a more egalitarian society, lies in having fun with what you do, and doing what you have fun with most. With that, I think I will probably stop my speech. I again take this opportunity to say that I'm extremely honored that the organizers at Symbiosis Law School thought about me as a judge. Okay, and I had tremendous fun watching these films over and over again. And at the same time, I want to extend my gratitude to the teacher community at Symbiosis Law School as well. Okay, for creating such a fantastic platform in such difficult times for our students to come together and keep seeking and exploring the rational, the brainy side, okay, of their personalities, but through the heart, right? And where they have fun. So with that, I think I will stop. But but great pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And especially, I want to thank Bhavya, because he was in touch with me all the time. Uh, he's a fantastic communicator, right? Extremely polite, extremely humble, right? And I think as long as people like Bhavya are there in your team, you will keep successfully staging such programs, right? Uh, and and thank you, Bhavya. Thank you, Team Lamhe, and thank you, Symbiosis Law School. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, sir. I am sure every team had something to take away from your inspiring words. I would like to inform that all the participants that the results for this event will be announced during the closing ceremony, that is on 30th of April. The details for the same will be communicated to all the participants via WhatsApp. Now I'd like to call upon Bhavya Dhanuja to deliver the vote of thanks.
This event has encouraged those with a keen interest in movie making and critiquing to put their skill to the test while simultaneously allowing themselves to immerse themselves in an unforgettable experience which blurs the line between law and filmmaking. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to our director, Dr. Shashikala Gurpur, for gracing the event with her presence. We thank our judge, Mr. Nikhil Nalkar, for taking out time from his busy schedule and agreeing to be a part of this event, thus making it a huge success. We thank our faculty in charge, Dr. Manika Kampan and Professor Garima Panwar, for joining us for the event. We thank our participants for their efforts and wonderful submissions, and all the organizing committees for ensuring that the event runs smoothly. Last but not the least, we thank the audience for their active participation and gracious inputs into the event. Thank you one and all.